Oh, my. Hello, Southwood. You are beautiful. It is a blessing and a joy to see you and be here with you today. I've chosen a brief text this morning from Hebrews 12, and I've added a verse from chapter 13. First, just a very quick word about the book of Hebrews. It's a bit of a mystery among scholars, as it seems clear that it wasn't written by Paul, like so much else of the New Testament after the Gospels. It's not in the form of a letter, so it can be thought of as a sermon to those who received it. And who they were is also unclear, but probably Jewish Christians in Rome who were dealing with persecution. In chapter 11, before the verse I'm going to read, the author reminds them of the many Israelite heroes and heroines who struggled, dealt with all kinds of suffering, but were blessed by God. So in the verse I'm going to read, the author reminds the readers, including us, that even in our hardest times, we have Jesus to turn to and many witnesses around us. Now let me just read that bit. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us. Looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. And then the first verse of chapter 13. Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it. So this morning, I want to introduce you to a wonderful part of the great cloud of witnesses that surrounds us in our world, people from the Evangelical Church of Angola in West Africa. They are people of powerful faith, devoted followers of Jesus, and they showed us incredible hospitality when we visited, but I can't claim we were angels. Let me tell you first how I happened to meet them and how I went there a little more than a year ago. 20 years ago, yipes, I was the conference minister in the Illinois conference. There was considerable interest in global relationships in that conference. They already had a global partnership with the churches in Chiapas, Mexico. But we added a conference partnership with the Evangelical Church of Angola. Now, a global partnership in the UCC is whatever we make of it. In our case, it first meant learning about our partners there. So I went to Angola in 2004, and I went again in 2005 with some members of the conference. My first trips were particularly moving because it was a short time after a terrible, long civil war in Angola, which ended in 2002, 2 years before my first visit. On that visit, I saw terribly damaged churches, tanks abandoned by roadsides. Bombs were still being cleared from the sides of the road. But I met amazing people who were running with perseverance the race set before them. I brought my album of photos from those 2 visits, which you can quickly look through if you want to in the narthex after service, although I'm leaving kind of quickly because I got symphony tickets. Sorry. Run. Old lady, crazy. Okay. Over the next year, one particular pastor and church in Illinois continued the partnership, with he and other members of that church making frequent trips and giving financial support to projects like a school that was eventually named after him, support of a hospital, and more. They were going last year for a special event that I'll tell you about in a moment, and for some reason they invited me to join them. And for some crazy reason, this old gal said yes, and I'm really glad I did. So I have a number of photos I want to show you, and don't worry, it's not going to take forever, as I tell you about our trip. Let me mention that Southwood's support of our church's wider mission, which is our national part of our budget goes to our offering, helps the United Church of Christ support several projects in Angola, and should you have interest, we can offer more. But for now, let's begin, and I want to thank Hal for doing the slides. We can go on to the next one. There should be what happened to my map? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, duh. I have seen these a zillion times, and of course I did. So there's a map of Africa, and the little yellow arrow shows you where Angola is. It's on the western coast of Africa, south of the Congo, north of Namibia, and east of Zambia. Our trip began in the capital city, Luanda, but we lived in Wambo, a thriving city where the denomination of our partnership is centered. I traveled with the Illinois pastor I mentioned and 7 others from his church. Our hosts had arranged for us to stay in homes, and I was privileged to stay in the home of these 2 kind and hospitable doctors and their 2 children. They were delightful hosts. They lived in a modest sort of condo-type home attached to others. It was simple and nice, but from the doorway across in a small park, every day we could see people digging through the trash for food and homeless ones finding places to sleep. Poverty, as we will see, is extreme. Next, there are just a few pictures of life in the city. This shows some women selling things. One on the left is holding a baby, and all over are people in that kind of situation, just selling what they can. Next, this is one of my favorites, women with a babe in arms, and that thing on her head, things to sell. And just parenthetically, can we go back there for just a quick second? I once tried that, another visit I made to Ghana. It is not easy. And look at her, baby and that big basket. Okay, next. And this shows an indoor market where people just bring things to sell. And the more common is this kind of outdoor market, which we often saw as we were leaving the city. Next, we met with the governor of Wambo region. She's in the center. She had been imprisoned and injured during the war. She welcomed us warmly, and before this picture, we had a formal meeting in a meeting area with her staff, and she surprised us with a gift of, each one of us got a statue. Mine is out there. They were like this big. Now, that had never happened on any of my or the church group's visits, so it was a big surprise. And we had only brought gifts for our home hosts, so we were a little embarrassed. But I made and brought with me little crocheted butterflies with a magnet on the back. So after we all got a statue, she got a crocheted butterfly, which she did later email a picture showing it on her fridge. But now for the main reason for our visit. 100 years ago, the first African-American missionaries from the Congregational Church, which is one of our historic lines, came to Angola, and our partner denomination there decided to hold what was a huge 100-year anniversary celebration last year. We set off on this road, the bumpiest, worst road I have ever been on, and I have been on many. This one even gave me a migraine. On this trip and others, we passed villages like this, which were partially abandoned and partially lived in. But finally we arrived, and a huge crowd of Angolan church folk were already gathering for the next day's celebration. They had walked or found rides from miles around and were mostly sort of camped around the area. Here are some women getting water from a well. During our time in this area, we came for the one day and the next day, our group was frequently asked by Angolan folk to have their pictures taken with us. It seemed odd, but we came to assume that some may never have seen pale people like us, so we were sort of celebrities. But now, here is the start of the huge event. Unfortunately, I don't have any pictures that really give you an idea of the thousands, and I mean thousands of people who came from villages and towns from miles around to this place. This shows some of the clergy processing, which gives me a chance to tell you a little about our partner church there. There are 719 congregations in the country with 215,000 members and just 78 pastors, a few of whom are women. The denomination is very strong in that country, a very strong force. They have schools, hospitals, and more all around Angola. Our group was seated on the stage in front with the clergy. Now, this shows you all the people with the blue tops, I think. This is one of like many, many choirs that sang. There was singing and dancing as an offering was taken, which was not all money. Some people brought food items they have grown. The offering took an hour. There were many speakers, including brief greetings from me from the United Church of Christ. It was a wondrous but extremely long event. 5 hours, no break. Call that church. So afterwards, and after a lunch, we walked in the area surrounding the event, and many people had come. This is a common sight there, a mom with a baby on her back and a chicken in the front. There were people selling food and cloth and any items that they could sell. I took many pictures of children. This just happened to be one dear girl taking care of her brother. So this was an amazing and a powerful event. But now I want to move on to other parts of the visit. Now this slide shows a picture from my album, the remains on the left of one church I saw in 2004. And next, a church and seminary that have been rebuilt in that area. It's really impressive and was wonderful to see. Next is seminarians in that seminary. Note how dressed up they are, not something you'll see in our seminaries. This is a hospital. I think it was just being developed as there weren't any patients there yet. Very basic, very simple. On the next days, we visited several different churches. This one seemed out in the country. It was quite a walk, but it was a good-sized church. And here, as everywhere we went, women had come out to welcome us and to sing. That happened everywhere. Hospitality was central to the identity of the people we saw. One day, we had been invited to make a special visit to a village where the church is strong. As always, people were lined up to see and welcome us. They greeted us with warm hospitality and, I suspect, curiosity. There were brief speeches and kind words. The only chairs available were a handful for those of us visiting. Next is a key photo I want you to see. See these young children with babies on their backs. That's the way children live there. And this shows a boy walking with a child on his back. How old do you think he is? 8, 10, something like that. This is a kitchen building in the village. There were more folk, again, wanting to get a look at these strange people coming to visit them. Next shows a resident of the village demonstrating grinding grain with a baby on her back. These children are outside of a building that is their school, and it might be the church also. No roof. And leaving from that village, I couldn't resist just showing one of the many beautiful children holding a balloon. We had brought some. I wish we had taken many more. So now it's a Sunday morning, and on the way to a church where I was to bring the message. As every place we went, there were people walking to the church through what you can tell is not a wealthy community, welcoming us, though. The women were greeting us and expecting us. another rough road. And here's the church. You can tell it how central church life is to the folks there, that the denomination has invested in this significant-sized church in the area of this village. Next we'll show, I think, of young people and children there. Now I'm on my way to the same pastor's second church through a very poor village of which we saw many, the same Sunday morning. But here are the people of the church, part of the great crowd of witnesses for Jesus. I asked them to greet you, so they are greeting all of you. And again, note the large attendance. The people of these churches are, for the most part, very poor. But for church, they put on their very best clothes and they worship with joy. A trip like that made and makes me acutely aware of my own privilege and wealth. As I remember too many children begging, women digging through trash for survival, the rough-made housing, and more. At the same time, being there and remembering it now fills me with gratitude and joy for experiencing the powerful, joyful faith of the church folk there. They are part of the great cloud of witnesses that surround us around the world, witnessing to the powerful love of God. As we here know, Southwood is strong. But overall in the United States, the church is declining. Churches are closing. But the church in Angola is powerfully alive and well. It's an amazing witness. Now, I have a hunch about both of those realities, and feel free afterwards to argue with me. We are an affluent nation. Yes, we have poverty. But poverty here is usually not nearly like that in places in the world like Angola. I don't discount it or disregard it, it's just different. My hunch about the declining church in our country is partly that many people here don't feel they need God or a community of faith. In Angola, their need for faith and hope and trust is strong, and they know the love and power of God as they run with perseverance the race of life that has been set before them. I hope their witness somehow touches your hearts and your faith. Thanks.